For more than 10 years now, the University of Toronto's Green Chemistry Initiative has served as an incubator for green chemistry learning on that campus. This student-led group has created a unique portfolio of activities to engage their peers in the science of sustainability. This includes an annual springtime conference and a brand new workshop co-created with Beyond Benign. To hear all about this, I'm joined by Francisco Yarur and Eloi Grignon, grad student leaders of the GCI, and Juliana Vidal from Beyond Benign. Eloi, Francisco, and Juliana, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you
for having us.
I'm going to start big with you all. A big question in terms of the program you all have there, Francisco and Eloi, at the University of Toronto, the Green Chemistry Initiative. Why does this program even exist there?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I think we need to start from understanding chemistry and how does it play a role in society. So chemistry is basically at the basis of everything, right? We have consumer products, medicine, foods, and throughout the decades, I don't think we have been doing chemistry very environmentally consciously. And so we've been polluting the planet and then doing all these processes that are not sustainable. And so green chemistry is it's like an area, a movement of chemistry now that is trying to make things right. And so the GCI is here to provide the tools to students, to teach students resources that they can use in their research and their educational endeavors to teach these things, to make chemistry more sustainable nowadays. And that's how the GCI forms, basically, to create this space for students to learn about this new chemistry, this new movement that's should have been always there, right? But it's getting traction now. So I think Eloi can talk a little bit more about the GCI and how the components of the GCI.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Francisco. Yeah, Eloi, so with that wonderful overview, how are you getting traction on the campus? Where, who's involved on the campus, and how are you sort of putting those ideas into practice there at the university?
The way we gain traction and we really operate is through initiatives. And so these might be kind of small things that run throughout the year. So for instance, we've got like a monthly trivia or social media campaigns. We have an energy reduction competition. So these are kind of always happening in the background. And then we also have more involved events. So for example, Francisco can tell you all about the symposium, but this is a 2-day or 3-day event that takes place in May, and it's kind of like a mini conference. It's a big event. And now this new workshop, I won't say too much yet, but will fall into that category as well. So that's something where we really work to deliver a particular event where people attend and can kind of come away with something that we've tried to deliver.
Fantastic. And thank you, Eloi. And folks, we are going to dive a little bit more into each of those programs, especially the workshop that Eloi just hinted at in just a second. But first, Juliana, I want to ask you, again, as someone who engages with universities around the world and on getting green chemistry into their curriculum onto the campuses, I want to ask you a question about the Green Chemistry Initiative there at the University of Toronto specifically. And at the risk of leading you a little bit with my question, I'm struck by the fact that it is a largely, if I'm not mistaken, a largely student-run, student-driven organization. And I guess it's a fairly broad question in that regard, Juliana. But your response to that notion that this is a student-run, student-driven thing, the potential of that, how common is that? I take the question how you'd like.
The fact that this is a student-led group and they are doing so much, they have so the impact in our community is so big. To me, it's like it shows how students can make a huge difference in their universities, in their institutions, anywhere that they want. So as an example, I learned about green chemistry whenever I was an undergrad, and I didn't have the support that a lot of the students they have today because of the Green Chemistry Initiative and all of the resources they're putting out there. So something that we always tell people to go and look after is their 12 Principles of Green Chemistry videos that's on YouTube. It's like a perfect explanation of how green chemistry works, everything. The resources are amazing. They also show like they have numbers like showing how if you implement green chemistry into your research lab, into your teaching lab, how much waste you're going to reduce, all of these things that show how green chemistry is important. So to me, they're a big example of the impact that we have, that students don't think that they can do all of these things, but they can, just with a little bit of intention, I'd say.
Thank you, Juliana. Yeah, and I've seen in the interviews and the folk that I've done for this series and folks I've met just throughout time. And Juliana, I guess I'd ask you to again just reflect back with me on this, that in terms of sort of sparking green chemistry on a campus, it can take all forms. But and certainly there are cases where you have, the champion who's a professor, whether it's a long tenured professor or a relatively new associate professor, but that one or two people who sort of spark it from the faculty perspective. But many other cases where, like you're suggesting, it's the passion and power of even just one student who comes onto a campus saying, "Hey, we're missing something here," or "I've heard about this thing and I want it," and the seed sort of grows from there. Has that been your?
Exactly, that's what we see. And it's way easier. Like students are bringing it out when they discover green chemistry, when they discover the difference they can make, and like by learning different things, they understand there's a field for that that can teach them how to go after a more sustainable world. They are like, why are we not doing this? Excuse me. So I think this is it. The students are the ones with the open mind, and they want to make a difference in the world, and that's what we see at Beyond Benign, and also in this big field that green chemistry is.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, Francisco, Elwa, I want to turn back to you for a second, specific to the Green Chemistry Initiative and that workshop that Elwa hinted at. Um, if you could just briefly, one of you, tell us uh, about the workshop, I guess, specific to what the focus of the workshop is, please.
Following last year's symposium in May, we had a lot of student feedback where students uh, very much appreciated the green chemistry that had been delivered, and they recognized the importance of the work. However, they don't necessarily always have the tools or the know-how to actually implement green chemistry methods or approaches into their own research projects that are already existing. It's very different, I guess, to see a green chemistry lecture and learn from it, and then to actually do it yourself in the lab. And so the, I guess, basic motivation for this workshop then was to deliver some of those practical methods to folks doing research in the lab. And I guess it's targeted towards graduate students, but it totally applies to postdocs as well, or research scientists, or even undergraduates in the lab. But I think the theme of the workshop, and Juliana obviously can talk more about the contents, but is to be very practical and to allow people to come away that afternoon with something very concrete that they can apply, directly, without necessarily needing to overhaul everything and change their thesis right away. So the idea is that there are small steps that we can do, and we kind of want to give people that toolkit.
Fantastic. Anything you'd add to that, Francisco? Not that you have
Yeah,
to.
I just wanted to add that the idea of the workshop arose from that feedback from students that were empowered by our conference symposium last year, where they saw that they could make a real change in the world, but they didn't really have the tools, and so they wanted a little bit more of the flavor of green chemistry. So we're here to provide a little more detail on the topic and give them actionable tools that they can use to go out there and change things. Right. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Thank you. Juliana, I want to turn it back to you again now, because I think what occurred to me is that this workshop is a really interesting indicator, I think, of kind of where we are in the world right now in terms of green chemistry and green chemistry education, which is to say that the world, and Juliana, I don't want to put, I'm not writing the mission statement for Beyond Benign here, but if the goal is that everyone from K through 12 and in university and graduate, when they learn chemistry, is exposed to the ideas of green chemistry as a core way to do chemistry. First of all, I mean, that's a rough way to put the long-term goal. Is that fair?
That's perfect. Let's go.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Um, and folks, Beyond Benign is working at one of the world's leading organizations in working toward that effort. I should note in full disclosure that Beyond Benign is the sponsor of this episode. But I would also say, in all honesty, that I'd be doing this episode regardless of that, because it's a really, these folks are wonderful and it's a really important topic. But all right, so if we're recognizing that despite Beyond Benign's incredible work over the years and a steady march toward that goal, we're not there yet. I think maybe Juliana, maybe if you could reflect, I don't want to put you on the spot for the exact percentages, but if you can give us a sense, maybe in the US or internationally, however you want to put it, so folks can get a sense of who out there in the world is, let's say, at least in the undergraduate and graduate realms, who's getting, what percentages of students are getting a direct access to green chemistry in their chemistry education.
James, oh my God. Okay, so in terms of numbers, I can talk about the United States because we
Yeah.
have a goal called the 25 by 25 initiative.
Mhm.
And the idea is to have 25% of the US graduating chemist students knowing green chemistry by 2025. So we're currently at 12%. So 12% of the US, of the chemistry graduates in the US, they are from a green chemistry commitment participating institutions. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of there's a long way to go. There's still a lot of work to do. So we want to increase this number, of course, by 2025, which is our goal, but also in terms of like general dissemination of green chemistry. It's important, and which I think this workshop is doing super well because it's open to every single student in every single part of the world. So even if they don't have access to to these resources, to green chemistry resources directly, they can have this opportunity to participate in a workshop that is going to tell them how they can apply green chemistry in their research, in their lives, whatever they want. So I think this is a great example, and yeah, I think we that's why we're working so much at Beyond Benign. But we have a long way to go, and I think the dissemination of the field plays a very important role on where we want to go and what we want to achieve.
Thank you. Yeah, and folks, just that 12%, just to, since I don't want to peg them and, peg it in time a little bit. I do want to peg it in time a little bit. This interview is happening in February 2024. So, because that's a number that I think, thanks to their work, is going to continue to grow. But just so to give you a sense of where we sit as Juliana represents that, I think, 12% number. But I bring all that up because of this. I think it's recognizing that not everyone is coming to an undergraduate or a graduate curriculum with any sort of green chemistry exposure or understanding. Elwa and Francisco, I think this workshop you're doing is a really, I guess, timely and interesting way to sort of catch people up. I don't want to call it a band-aid because I think that doesn't do it justice, but kind of a I don't know, what would you what would you call it? It's a way to, as you said, sort of ramp people up. Like, you haven't had the benefit of an exposure to green chemistry prior to this, but you want to, and I think we could argue that they need to. And so this is kind of, let's get you up to speed as quickly as possible. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We want to bring them on board with green chemistry and teach them things, right? So they can come up to speed and then also contribute to the movement, right? With their own ideas, with their own problems they have in, I don't know, the global south and things like that, right? So we want to bring everybody up to speed and so they can contribute to the cause.
And in terms of who can attend it, who, if we're putting this out there to the world, who is it open to, and is there sort of a cap on numbers, that kind of thing?
So it's going to be a hybrid event. So we have mostly Toronto folks joining in person, and I guess there is a physical cap on that, so just based on the room. But it's really open to anyone who wants to join via Zoom. And in fact, we've already got a sign-up sheet. Alicia, who's spearheading the event on our end, created this sheet maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I think we have just under 100 people signed up as of now. And yeah, the bulk of those people are coming from really all over the world, which is great to see. So no, it's totally open to anyone who's interested and wants to tune in.
So hybrid event, open again to with a physical cap to how big the room might be, but then open via online and recorded. And I think being conducted, I guess I'm asking all three of you this in the context of with a pilot sort of spirit in mind. Am I right? So to me, the implication of that being, this isn't the last time that something like this is going to be done. And I guess, um, uh, Juliana, I guess I'd ask you, since you're obviously Beyond Benign is helping to design and conduct this workshop. Is what's when I think it's being called a pilot. What's in your all's minds as you produce this in terms of the future, I guess?
I hope this is going to continue in the University of Toronto, but not only in the University of Toronto. I hope that this inspires other student groups that are involved with green chemistry or not to try and organize their own events and get this rolling. So I think this is the beginning of another movement. I'd say green chemistry workshop movement everywhere. So no, I'm really excited to support this and be there in University of Toronto, and Beyond Benign is also very happy to empower these students to continue doing the amazing work that they are doing.
Wonderful. All right, let's dive in for a second to the content of the workshop. And I'd hesitate to get too specific, but sort of the broad categories for folks. Again, to the point of those who might want to attend or watch the video, or those, as you just said, Juliana, who might be inspired to host their own workshops. As you all looked at this puzzle of wanting to people, graduate students, undergraduates, to be equipped better in green chemistry, catch them up to speed faster because they probably haven't had exposure or maybe haven't had exposure. What are the categories of content that the workshop's going to include to sort of tackle that issue?
I'm going to jump in, Francisco and Eloy. Feel free to jump in as well.
Go for it.
But as Eloy and Francisco mentions, like simple things that you can do to implement green chemistry into your research in your life. So things like which solvent am I using? Can I use something less hazardous? Metrics. How do I have a reaction here that I'm doing in the lab? How can I make this greener without having to just reinvent the wheel completely? Also, we're going to have a career session after the workshop per se. So the workshop's going to be in the morning. And in the afternoon, we're going to talk about careers in green chemistry and the diversity of things that are out there so people don't feel like they have to follow one path. And for the people who are not very familiar with green chemistry at all, we have an introduction about what green chemistry is, how we got there, and all of these things. So I don't know if
Wonderful.
Eloy and Francisco want to add
Yeah,
anything if
I
I
wanted to
forgot.
emphasize. I wanted to emphasize the last thing you said. The what is green chemistry and the metrics as well, because sometimes people think they're doing green chemistry, but sometimes they're looking at the wrong thing, right? So how do we quantify green chemistry? How do we know that we're actually doing green chemistry, right? So
Elwa, anything to add? And I guess I brought it out in terms of um, a way to look at the content is what Elwa and Francisco, you all have seen on your campus with the students you've interacted with in terms of what information they might need or that they've struggled with not having to move this all forward.
I think we had also mentioned, yeah, doing kind of case studies about projects that I think we were even asking for feedback at one point from participants about what they might want to see covered, for example, and to talk about particular research projects that folks are doing, so that it's very personal in a way, and that it's very applicable as well. So I think that was also a focus. So not just to talk about kind of uh, sort of macroscopic green chemistry projects, but also projects that people are already working on and trying to tune those a little bit and apply green chemistry lens to it.
One topic that I think we discussed previously was, and I think tell me if it's going to be in the workshop, which was essentially how to get green chemistry into your research. And I think it was specifically sort of talking to your advisor about to get green chemistry into your research. Am I right on that? And again, it speaks to me, I think, because it's in that same vein as we started with here, which is as a student advocating for your beliefs and your needs and what you're hoping for in your chemistry education. So I'll leave it at that and let anyone jump in. Yeah.
James. That was also, we talked about that. That's also in the content of the workshop. And also the university, the GCI, the Green Chemistry Initiative, is also going to talk about their experience and how they got there. So we can like if anyone wants to create their own student group in green chemistry, we can do so as well. So you're gonna talk to in this workshop. They are going to talk to.
Elwal or Francisco, anything on that?
And I guess maybe you can take this one, Francisco, but we had also mentioned having a little bit of time allocated to covering how to discuss with your supervisor that you would like to do green chemistry, because green chemistry kind of varies from lab to lab, and some labs really focus on that and appreciate that culture or that lens, and some it's perhaps considered sort of a side concern. And so for folks who are just coming into a graduate program, it can be kind of tough to talk to their advisor about that and sort of pivot the research a little bit. And so this is an important area to cover. Sorry, Francisco, I said I'd let you talk, but then I
No, no,
took
no,
that one.
that was good. That was good. I guess we're still in the works of designing this section of the workshop, because it could be a sensitive topic, a difficult topic, trying to break through the status quo of the classic research that a group has been doing for many, many years, right? So we're still designing on how to approach this section of the workshop, and how to give students um, rational tools on how to manage and navigate the sensitive conversations with supervisors. Yeah, but it will be in the content of the workshop for sure.
I again, as someone who's spoken to so many folks in the field of all ages and ranges and sectors within green chemistry, I think it's really wonderful that you're doing that, because you're as you all discussed, you're hitting the hard content of what is green chemistry, how do you practice it, what does it look like in research. But I think it's really important and wonderful that you're tackling this sort of the human side of it, basically, because again and again and again, and Juliana, I know you all at Beyond Benign speak to this. It's that the human inertia of as one of the barriers, which is this is how we've always done things, or it takes a lot of time, or it costs money to change a curriculum, those kind of things, all of which is very real. And all of which are, but they are end up as barriers to sort of trying to adopting the new, to taking this new approach. And so I love the idea that the workshop is equipping individuals, or will equip individuals, to think about that and think about how to tackle those conversations, because they are real, but they're incredibly important for moving all this forward. Juliana, do you have any?
Yeah, I feel like this is correct. And also, always in the green chemistry field, I've always felt like a rebel, in the sense of like going against the norm, trying to change things. And I feel like the most important part in that sense, it's is that you're going to feel supported. So even though students, they're not lucky enough to go to their supervisors and managed to actually make this change and apply green chemistry, they have a whole community behind them. They have a whole community of students. They have a whole community of institutions. So that feeling of I'm not alone, I think it helps a lot, and they can get resources and help from different places. So, as you said, it's the human side. We are going to be rebels together, all of us.
Wonderful. And I would, and then folks, turn you back to that gctlc.org, because that is, again, as the folks at Beyond Benign and ACS would say, it is all about the community, and that's a nice hub where you'll find that community, folks who can um, support you in addition to this wonderful workshop. All right, so I'd like to know, we should start to wrap up, but I have a couple just closing questions for you all. And one of them is Elwa and Francisco. With your wonderful experience there with the Green Chemistry Initiative, we're pulling back from the workshop now, just to sort of the idea of a student-led organization on a campus trying to uh, as Juliana, as the rebels instigate, advance, whatever we want to call it, green chemistry. Um, just broadly speaking, each in your own words, what would your advice be to students on other campuses who might have that, like, oh, I want to do that on our campus? What words of wisdom can you offer them?
I would say just pick one initiative, one target, and start with that. Basically, start with a core, with a little nut, and then kind of build from there. So find like-minded people, perhaps some staff who are willing to help you, and then just one thing that you want to deliver, and start with that, do it well, and that just kind of gets the ball rolling, and you make a name for yourself and so on, and it just kind of gets interest from the community, and then it sort of snowballs from there. I find the GCI just kind of, for us, has just sort of grown, and sometimes not even deliberately, which is great. So there is sort of organic growth in that way. So start small, and it'll kind of happen, I think.
Exactly. No, I was exactly gonna say that. Start small. Know that you're gonna be supported, and that you can make a change.
I think something you just said a while on your website. I think you when you on the website it talks about the things you all have, the symposium, the trivia events, the speaker series, all the sort of the core things you do. And I think if I'm not mistaken, there's a sentence on there that says, in addition to other things that are driven by passions that new members of the initiative bring to the table, that kind of thing. Words to that effect. Am I
Mhm.
right about that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think a lot of people have very different ideas of how to integrate green chemistry, just depending on their experience and what they're focused on. So, actually, the newest initiative that we just started thinking about this weekend came from a lab technician in the academic labs. And she mentioned doing this freezer challenge, which is, I think, a global challenge which extends beyond chemistry. So, really, any lab with freezers, and about reducing energy consumption related to cold storage. And so, of course, that's very specific to her because she probably has a lot of freezers to deal with. And it's not really something that we had thought about, but it totally falls within that register um, of energy efficiency. So, yeah, like this is a new initiative that we can totally take on, and it was really not created by us or thought of by us. So I think there's always a lot of room for input from really different people within the community. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love from the GCI, that our group doesn't feel like we're just the ones that tell people what to do, but people bring their perspectives and their new ideas, and they can implement it, and we just support them, and we give them funding, we give them the resources, and it's like, okay, go ahead, go over your initiative. Um, so it's a community. We're building a community, not just
Juliana, any words from you? Again, students out there at other campuses. I think Elwa and Francisco said it really nicely, but anything to add in terms of, words of wisdom for them, that the way they might want to plant the seed for a similar, a green chemistry initiative type program on a campus, on their own campus.
I think the thing that resonated with me a lot was not being afraid to make mistakes. I left my country, Brazil, because I wanted to study more green chemistry. I wanted to learn more. I came all the way to Newfoundland to do my PhD in the snow. So I think not being comfortable in what you're doing, I think is one of the advice that I would say. It's going to be weird to learn about green chemistry in the beginning. You don't know what you're doing. All of us don't know what we're doing, to be honest. We just keep learning with each other and doing our best. So just don't be afraid to make mistakes. Be uncomfortable and let's do it. That's my advice.
because you will be uncomfortable. So like, it's fine. Just
Yeah.
be comfortable being uncomfortable, and you'll be fine.
There's good energy in that. All right. Well, then with that in mind, we should head towards wrapping up with this final question. I'm going to ask it of all three of you, if I could, please. Which is this: as we look to the future, we're going to broaden way out now, and just to your own, with your experiences in green chemistry, what you're pursuing now, and as you look, to the next year, the next 5 years, the next 20 years, take it as you wish. What's on your mind in terms of what your hopes are, what you're excited about? What do you, as you look sort of on the horizon, be it near or far, and green chemistry and the potential of the kind of things you're working on? What are you excited about? Where do your hopes lie?
I'm excited to just involve more people, to spread the world, to create a bigger community. I know it's growing fast, but it needs to grow even larger. So I'm excited to just finish my PhD, move around, and involve other people from other fields, from other parts of the world, um, and yeah, create a bigger movement. That's what I'm excited about.
I'm excited for green chemistry to kind of become more mainstream. I think in the past, decade or so, there's been an enormous kind of educational effort geared towards undergrads, and of course, these undergrads are now kind of coming up through the ranks, and they'll eventually become decision makers. And I think all those efforts are really going to bear fruit, and I'm very excited to see what chemistry begins to look like when that actually takes hold. And I'm very excited for that.
To me, what I really wanted to see is like the diversity of green chemistry integration and application and practice everywhere, and how individuals in different places of the world, different people, are doing green chemistry and solving their local problems using this. So I'm really excited to see green chemistry being used everywhere.
Thank you to all three of you for your time, for sharing with us, broader thoughts about green chemistry, more specific to your green chemistry initiative, and even more specific to the wonderful workshop that you all have planned. I hope folks watching and listening will go tune in to all of the above. But again, finally, thank you very much to all three of you for joining me.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
Thank you for having us, James.